Suddenly soundtracks are here to provide you. Suddenly soundtracks will show you care. Oh, be more the soundtrack inside you with sweet understanding. Oh, with sweet understanding. With sweet understanding. Soundtracks are your friend. Welcome, guys, for the very first episode of Suddenly Soundtracks. This is a show where myself and a guest go through a movie, track by track, discuss each track and score it, and then rank it. This is not your ordinary movie review show. This show focuses solely on the soundtrack and the music at hand. Yes, we will discuss the context of each song that we discuss, but this show is judged solely based on the soundtrack and the actual film. So if this is, if we review a shitty or dumb or bad movie, but the soundtrack is killer, that's forgivable. But if it's a bad movie with bad songs, it's not. First, we will dissect the entire movie, song by song, and give our rating of each song out of 10. Then we will rank each song from worst to best, then give an overall average of our scores. In the end, my final verdict will be given, and it will either be not rockin', scratched disc, one-time listen, download the soundtrack, or rockin' for the best of the best. So guys, today for the first time, for our first episode, we are going to go through my favorite musical and my guest Don's favorite musical, The Little Shop of Horrors.
Now, the most menacing musical comedy ever to paint the silver screen, Greene. Little Shop of Horrors.
Where did you get such a weird plan?
Thrilled to the romance.
Will you marry me?
Witness the drama.
You'll be a 10. You have a talent for causing things.
I've been saving all month for this. I think I need a root canal. I'm sure I need a long, slow root canal.
Beat me, cowboy! Beat me now!
Savor the spectacle of the first plant in motion picture history ever to sing for its supper.
Now, I'm just a mean green mother from outer space, and I'm dead.
Starring Rick Moranis, Ellen Greene, Vincent Gardenia, with a special appearance by Steve Martin, James Belushi, John Candy,
Comfy?
and Bill Murray.
It's your professionalism that I respect.
Little Shop of Horrors.
I am joined by my guest, Mr. Donald Gormanly. Good friend of mine for a couple of years now. How are you doing, Don?
I'm all right. How you doing, Chris?
When was the first time you saw Little Shop, and what do you think of Little Shop?
I saw it back when it was theaters, I think in 1986, and I fell in love with it just as a not even just as a movie, just as the idea of it and all the characters and everything. And I had no idea that it was a play or a Broadway show or anything. Wow. I just saw it as a movie, and I fell in love with it between the puppet and the music. And yeah, back in the day.
Awesome.
I think I was only 1986. I was only 7 years old. So.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
And this, do you consider this one of your favorite films ever?
Yeah, I'd say it's my favorite film,
Awesome.
Musical or otherwise.
Yeah, I'm in that boat too. It's in my top 5 easy. Let's get right into this dissection of Little Shop of Horrors, Don. All right, the first track is the prologue, or as many call it, The Little Shop of Horrors.
Mm-hmm.
This is sung by, hopefully I'm going to pronounce these right, Chiffon, Ronette, and Crystal. They are
Correct.
named after doo-wop Motown groups from the 60s, I believe. The Ronettes, the Chiffons, and the Crystals. Or
I think
something
it's
like that.
chiffon.
Chiffon,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, this prologue actually starts the movie off really, really well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it pretty much it gives you the mood of the movie and the actual tone of the actual soundtrack all at once, because this song has like a very catchy, upbeat kind of Motown feel, like every song in this movie does. But if you listen to the lyrics, they say a completely different thing.
Yeah, I mean, especially leading off with the prologue with the very foreboding, ominous voice, and the and you know, telling basically human existence was not ready for this, and you know, on this date it changed the world forever, and then all of a sudden it pops into this upbeat kind of. It's just a great kind of contrast between the two pieces of the song.
Exactly. And with the lyrics themselves, the girls actually spell doom for everybody. They're like, you better beware because something is going to get you. It's a good lead up because a lot of it's foreshadowing. Because if you watch the movie, they're saying they're going to get you, and they actually point to Mushnik. But overall, Don, what are your thoughts? Do you think that this was a great song? What do you think?
Oh, yeah. No, it's one of the most iconic lead-off tracks you could come up with. Yeah, it's such a great way to write a song where it's kind of, everyone's bopping their heads and enjoying it, but they're not actually like hearing that, you know, this plant wants to eat everybody and kill you all. So it's kind of a cool thing to do. And it's just great songwriting. I mean, it's regardless of the lyrics, the music itself is just, it's so catchy and just so memorable. And that's kind of, it's not a coincidence that that this was a Broadway show first. I mean, when you do musical theater, one of the things you want to do is, especially at the beginning and ending of each act, is you want people to keep things and keep melodies in their head.
All right, Don, what is your final score?
For this one, it is 10 Audrey 2s.
All right, and I have 10 Audrey 2s out of 10 as well. All right, this is Skid Row.
Okay.
Now, Skid Row is this is an ensemble song. Basically, this describes the plight and problems that Seymour and Audrey are going through, along with everybody in their neighborhood. It establishes that they live in squander, poverty, crime is rampant, bums are sleeping in the streets, sludge is being thrown in the street. This is like Belle from Beauty and the Beast. It kind of establishes the setting, and it's a staple of Mencken.
I completely agree. I think when that supposedly an impoverished woman, you know, everyone's impoverished in Skid Row to some degree, but when she comes out and alarm goes off at 7, I mean, that's something that I can only speak for myself. I know women love singing it. When I've done the show twice now, and it's one of those parts that all the sopranos, even if they're not singing that part of the show, they all kind of sing it out during rehearsals and everything, and myself included. Like, it's just such a, and the woman, I mean, I'm not sure of her name, but she has an amazing voice. Like, she's just, it's a belting, strong, soulful voice, and it's incredible. Song-wise, that tells you what you need to know about, you know, Seymour being destitute and taken in by Mr. Mushnik, and he lets him sleep under the counter. Audrey also, she sets up that she's, you know, had trouble with guys and relationships, and then you see all of the you hear all the voices of the people walking around Skid Row, and it builds, and you have the scene, the part where, like, he's kind of walking in an alley with the slow part and slow part of the song, and then all the other people in the street start clawing up the cyclone fence, and that's where the voices build, and it just becomes this amazing
chorus
group of singers.
Because at the end it builds and it builds and it builds to this giant, huge finale that.
Oh yeah, it feels like they're holding that note out forever at the end.
So, Don, what do you give Skid Row?
Skid Row, I give 10.
Awesome. We both give Skid Row 10 Audrey 2s out of 10.
I was walking in the wholesale flower district that day.
This is a very, very short song. It basically, through song, and actually Seymour kind of speaks it, it establishes how he found Audrey 2. It was at a florist's outdoor florist shop, and then there was a total eclipse of the sun, and Audrey 2 just appeared, and basically this is how you establish exposition correctly in a musical. You do it through song, because this could have easily been done with dialogue, but the truth be told, this is 2 minutes of exposition, and it's done through song, and it's catchy.
I mean, it's a great way of telling the story, especially with the recent total eclipse of the sun that happened in real life. I mean, so many people posted memes of a picture from Dadu from the movie. So it tells you how iconic that song is. Again, maybe not everyone can sing the lyrics to you, but they know what it's about. And just to get into it a little bit, a couple things. So I recently, they re-released Little Shop of Horrors with the director's cut for two nights of performances in some movie theaters. So I went and saw it in one of them on one of the nights. And what I noticed, I mean, it's the first time in, 20 years, 30 years that I've seen it on the big screen. Was 30 years, right? So I was watching Dadu, and sure enough, like, I think the store next to Chang's, or the store, so from the viewer's perspective, it would be either one or two stores to the right of Chang's, is actually like, the owner's name is Don, funny enough. So I watched it, I was like it's Don's Florist or Don's Auto Parts or something like that. But one of the things that having done the show twice, I've when you get the script to Little Shop, and I'm using this in context of specifically this song, one of the first pages of the script is a note from, I think Mencken it was. One of them wrote like a paragraph or two. Basically, the gist was, when you do this show, don't camp it up. Do it as a serious piece, and the humor and all the emotions that people feel will come naturally from how it's written. Exactly. Now, I've seen the show a bunch of times, when I haven't done it, and a lot of them just camp it up. And I even before reading that, I don't remember the note from when I did it back in college, but I do remember the note. I did it a couple years ago here in Queens, and both times I did it serious, and it didn't, because I took it serious. Like, I know it's fiction, I know, but and I know how ridiculous an alien, human fly trap, Venus, an alien fly, a human trap is coming down to Earth and trying to eat people. I get the absurdity of it all, but it was never campy to me. It was always something I enjoyed the music to. The music was beautiful. I thought Ellen Greene, ever since day one, I've been in love with Ellen Greene as Audrey. I don't want to see anybody else do it as a viewer, but so many productions of it camp it up, and they tell you in the first page, don't camp it up. We get that it's crazy, but don't. It'll work. And what my point is with Dadu, it's kind of the first scene in the movie where it is a little campy. But in a good way, and that's the thing about Frank Oz. He didn't take it to an extreme. He's walking across the street. It kind of reminds me of a lighter version of, I think it's Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire, where he's like, or 3, whichever one was, where he's kind of dorky and walking on the street and just kind of And so Seymour's doing that, looking at plants, nothing, and then he walks away, and then the green beam hits and the lights go out, and then he comes back, and then he turns around and walks back to the plane. So it is kind of campy, but it's not overdone.
Yeah.
And I think Frank Oz, like, after watching this again now in the theater, like, it makes me want to now go see every Frank Oz film and I wonder, like, are they all as good as this? Is he that wonderful? I'm not familiar with his body
I'm
work.
not really familiar either, besides
I want to be now, because
stuff.
he think about it, he made the film that I like most in the world. Like, so why aren't I looking into the catalogs? But to do as a song, I think it's a great way to to quickly tell the tale of how this plant arrived here, how the main antagonist arrived on the scene. You know, whatever background we're allowed to know is told through this song. So at least what we're allowed to know right now. I love it. I think it's wonderful, and it's a quick little again, catchy as hell song. I mean,
you're gonna hear that a lot. You're gonna hear that a lot.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yep. Yep. And it does its job so well that for my ranking, I'm gonna give Dadu 10 Audrey 2s out of 10 for what it does and the exposition that it spells just in 2 minutes, and it's so well written. What are your thoughts on your ranking, Don?
Right there with you. 10 2s.
Yeah, 10 2s. Indeed.
I've given you sunshine. I've given you dirt. You've given me nothing but heartache and hurt.
Grow for me is okay. So Seymour, since that total eclipse, has been caring for this plant. He cares for a lot of plants. One might even say, as inanimate as these other plants have been, they've still been his best friends. I mean, never once in the show or the movie or any of it do you find, other than Mushnik and Audrey to some extent, you never really get to know anyone in Seymour's life. Therefore, I have to assume that he has no one else in his life except for these plants. And from the right out of the gate, you see him caring for them, and he's fixing the shelf. You know, this is a little earlier in the movie, but he's fixing the shelf, and all the plants fall, and Mushnik yells at him. That's all you get, is that he has plants all over his room. So now this plant comes here, and it's different, it's unique, he doesn't quite know the history of it. So he takes it in, he buys it, what is it, $1.95?
Yeah.
He takes it home, but nothing comes of it yet. So now he puts it in this window, and all of a sudden this guy comes in, and they make $100 in like 20 seconds. So there's something magical about this plant. He obviously doesn't know anything about it yet, but you know, Mushnik says he sees it fall apart, and Mushnik says, fix it back to health, I'm counting on you. So now it's almost like he has purpose. He can save Mushnik just threatened to close the florist. That's his job. That's all he has, the plants in the florist shop. So now Mushnik says, basically the life of this flower shop hinges upon this little plant of yours. Fix it back to health. So he's like, okay. So he's done everything he can. He's given it the light. He's given it the food, the minerals, the water, and it hasn't really grown. And this is his plea to the plant. Look, we know you can help us. Please grow for me. Whatever it takes, I'll do. And he finds out what it takes, unfortunately, to some extent.
It establishes that the plant likes human blood.
Oh, yeah.
Human blood, fresh human blood. And through that entire song, he says, "Whip me a vein." The blood drops go right into Tui, and I would say this song again is a great establishing song. This first opening sweep establishes everything you need to know. So if you're listening to the soundtrack and you've never seen the movie, but you're listening just to the CD soundtrack, you already know that shit's gonna go down. They live in a shitty place. They found a plant from outer space, and that Audrey likes blood. You get that in the first 4 tracks, and that's ridiculous.
I know this is soundtrack we're talking about, but it still, just when I saw it in theater recently, it still blows my mind watching him, damn roses, damn thorns, and then you see the shadow of the puppet plant, like with the sucking motion, and then it pans up, and there's Audrey too, like looking like a kid, like a puppy with a treat in front of him, just like, and you see it, and it's just this magical looking plant. They did such a bang up job on the visuals of this movie, and to have a soundtrack as good as the movie is, it's just It's wonderful.
When we get to a certain song, we're going to talk about the puppetry and how amazing it is. Don, what's your final ranking on Grow For Me?
Grow For Me, I gave big shock. I gave it 10.
I know this opening sweep is literally perfect. I am giving Grow For Me again 10 2Es out of 10, like Don did.
I know Seymour's the greatest, but I'm dating a semi-sadist.
Now, this is, for me, one of the controversial things I'm going to say, but I know you love this song, and I'm going to let you go for it.
Okay.
It's a song called Somewhere That's Greene, Don. Tell us about it.
This is establishing Audrey's yearning for a better life. I mean, it also it emphasizes how bad life is for at least some of the people on Skid Row, and how not everyone's, no one can be, I don't know about no one, but certainly the characters involved in the movie, they're not really, they feel stuck where they are. They feel like maybe they can't, maybe they can't improve their life here, but they still have a yearning, wishing they can get out of here. And this is her. I mean, it's talking about, keeping the home, and specifically with Seymour, and I think a line that doesn't get put into the song, but happens right before it is, in the movie specifically, she gets confronted by the three urchins, and they say, "Oh, we saw I don't know who the boyfriend is, but he's terrible to you, and blah, blah, blah. Why don't you get with Seymour?" And she says something to the effect of, "I don't deserve a good, sweet person like Seymour." And then it shows you how beaten down she is on herself,
Exactly.
that she doesn't deserve happiness, she feels like. Yet here she is in her room saying, "I would love this house, I would love this husband and little dog in the yard." And it's just a pretty picture. It's I didn't think about this when I ranked, but I'm not a fan of in the movie where there's a scene where like Snow White cartoon birds
Yeah,
fly.
that's
Like, it's
problem.
cute. It's cute, but I feel it kind of doesn't match the movie. But
it's a fantasy.
but I get it. She wants to be, she wants the perfect princess, not princess like a rich, wealthy, lavish thing, but just like the perfect life. She'd like it. And but I think even as perfect as everything she sings about sounds, I think she would still be okay with just any type of break from this terrible existence that they all have on Skid Row.
And my thoughts are kind of, you hinted at it. The fantasy kind of dream sequence with the birds take you completely out of the movie. It doesn't really
it was a little strange.
It doesn't work that well. But I will attest that this song gets 10 times better when you watch the director's cut, because of the reprise of it at the end where she's saying she's going to be somewhere that's green, which means inside the plant. So the song itself has more meaning in the director's cut and a lot more tragedy to that bookend. This song establishes she has feelings for Seymour, and that's really sad, because had he known that, none of this would have happened. That's just fact. Had he known that she liked Seymour for who he was, none of this would have happened.
Well, I wouldn't say that, because as far as, well, the only reason is she was also not necessarily, she doesn't really go into it in the song, but she does talk about it before the song with the urchins.
You're right.
She also feels stuck in her relationship. So I don't know that just liking Seymour would have changed that much, or just letting it be known, because she doesn't seem like the type, as trashy as she dresses as a character in certain scenes, and even though she doesn't do it for, trashy purposes per se, she never comes across as the type to do things like adultery and things like that. So I can't say, even if Seymour said something to her, that she'd be like, "Oh, okay, I'll leave Oren and be with Seymour," because she doesn't feel like she feels like she's trapped with Oren as well.
Well, that's true. Yeah, but the whole thing with Seymour is that he thought that she liked him later on in the movie because of the plant, and that's what caused the death of Mushnik. Because and we'll get to that. But just to close off my thought on this, Somewhere That's Green, yes, it's not a bad song by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, I feel like it doesn't, as a song itself either, I don't think it stands up to more than half of the songs in the show. But yeah, I can see your point, and I can see how you like it. A lot of people do, and my opinion is completely unpopular. I know a lot of people love Somewhere That's Green.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I think to me what keeps it
Mm-hmm.
on par with everything is Ellen Greene's performance of it.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea what was put into the development of the voice as far as Audrey should sound this way or not this way or anything. Yeah, I mean the whole like kind of airy, hey, Seymour. I don't know where that came from, but I mean that's how it's. Anything.
It's the character, and I can see that.
You know what? I don't recall. I mean, I wasn't looking at specifically Audrey character stuff when I did the show because I was Seymour, but
that's probably what Alan Menken wanted.
It's how it developed. I mean, that's just how. And now everyone, because of her doing it, that's a lot of times maybe not necessarily as airy as she does it, but everyone tries to make it very very. I don't know if the word's weak, but. There's a lot of imitation done because of how iconic it is, because that's Audrey. That's just how Audrey's known. I mean, certainly her singing voice is not weak. When she belts, she belts. I mean, that's.
I mean, yeah.
I think she. I mean, again, we're going off the movie soundtrack. I love her voice in this song. I think her voice is phenomenal in the song.
Yep, of course. And I grew up with it too. I like her voice. But I actually did see a lot of the criticisms of it, that it does get a little obnoxious sometimes, a little bit. But that's just personal preference. It doesn't have anything on the. Truth be told, yes, the voice thing is kind of polarizing to some people, but she's fantastic. Her performance is fantastic, and you know what? I'm going to give, for my ranking of my rating of Somewhere That's Green, I'm going to give it an 8 Audrey 2s out of 10.
Okay.
What are you going to give it, Don? I'm pretty sure it's going to be higher than that.
Yeah, I'm giving it 10. The whole animated bird thing gave me a little pause, but then I realized that I don't think that's really. I'm not going to.
It has nothing to do with the soundtrack.
So, right. So I'm gonna give it 10 because I think the song is beautiful and I love her performance of it.
And that's all you need.
Seymour pushed a broom, nothing in his news but gloom and doom. Then he lit a fuse and give him room. He started an explosion, holy cow.
Now this is where the film diverges from the play, because in the play, in the movie, this goes into a song called "Some Fun Now," but "Some Fun Now" is a rewritten version of "You Never Know,"
right?
Which comes before "Somewhere That's Green."
Right.
Now, You Never Know is, there's a difference between Some Fun Now and You Never Know. Some Fun Now is essentially a music montage of the growth of Audrey. It's basically a transition piece. It shows how Audrey Two's growth, it has gone from just a little plant eating the blood from Seymour's fingers to, at the end of the song, you see Audrey in her full glory. She's now a huge plant the size of a human. So Some Fun Now just acts as a transition piece, and it works the way that it works in the film successfully. Because as an edit, that is editing 101. You want to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. And if you have a song like You Never Know, that kind of... I like it better, of course, than Some Fun Now. I'll get into that in a second. But film-wise, it works. And it works to a benefit. But soundtrack-wise, this song is very inferior, in my opinion, to You Never Know. Because You Never Know actually has Seymour singing with the muses. Seymour singing with them and acknowledging that they exist. And I feel like that interaction would have been great in the actual film. But I can see why it was cut. Changed and rewritten. What are your thoughts on Some Fun Now and You Never Know, Don?
Well, You Never Know is more of a fun song, I think, just as a performer, because that's the scene you get the plant, the middle-sized plant, where you slip your whole arm inside the shell and your hand actually guides the pod. And then you have a fake arm wrapping around it to look like your second arm holding it. And it's a lot of fun to work with that one, because now you tell it what to do. And like, so the urchins are on the scene with you, so you could like go. It's sort of like when right before the John Candy scene where he's sitting in the radio station and he has the plant on his lap, and the plant sees the woman bent over the desk. So it looks at him, it looks at the butt, then it looks at him, and he sees Seymour is like looking that way. Then it looks back at the butt, and then it goes to eat it, and then he pulls it back and all. That's the closest the movie comes to the scene of You Never Know, and I mean it's such a fun scene to do with that puppet. So and it's a great song. I mean it's a fun song. I think the song Some Fun Now. I think the song Some Fun Now is a little more. I hate saying fun, but a little more fun because it's a little more rockish, a little more meat to the music itself. But
it's a transition piece.
As a transition piece, it works wonderful. It allows the time to pass, and it shows you. I think that's when it shows you like him letting the plant suck each finger over and over and over again. And I love the touch of, especially when productions of it go up. I love the touch of how the actor has Band-Aids on every finger, and like you see how much how much blood he's putting into this plant.
And he's kind of airheaded,
Yeah, and again, the three urchins in the movie specifically are phenomenal. I mean, I think it's Tashina Arnold and I know it was Chiffon and is it Crystal? I forget which two of them went on to work together on the show Martin with Martin Lawrence. And the third one has if anything, I think she has the most powerful voice out of all. But they're all wonderful singers, and in this scene they're on the rooftops and they're dancing, and you hear them even in the soundtrack. You hear they're wonderful. They have wonderful voices. So it's a great performance of a song. Yeah, it serves a different purpose in the movie than in the show. But yeah, I mean it's still a great tune. Yeah.
The movie version, I will say, does suffer just a little bit because I myself just compare it so much to You Never Know that it kind of, as for a soundtrack piece, it just for me doesn't live up to that as much as I wish it did.
Okay.
But I understand. It's a cut that I understand why they made in the movie, and it's totally logical. I just wish that maybe for the soundtrack they put You Never Know on there just as something extra.
Gotcha.
So just for that, I'm giving it 7 Audrey 2s out of 10. Yeah.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on Some Fun Now?
I gave it 10.
Oh, good. Okay, it's a transition piece, of course.
I love the audio to it. They sound wonderful.
That's good.
And it's a catchy tune, and it's very sonically it's very bulked up. It has other instruments. It has trumpets and everything. It's a great tune.
All right. Then something was cut this is our first cut song from the actual stage play, because after Some Fun Now, in the movie it cuts straight to the flower shop it being a success, and then it goes into a certain song we're going to get into soon. But Closed for Renovation is the song from the play that I feel like is a song that deserved to be cut. This song just establishes that the shop is going over a renovation. It's going over a remodeling. And Mushnik, Audrey, and Seymour sing about the renovation and talk about the renovation. Through Some Fun Now in the actual film, you see that the shop is renovated and it's remodeled. So, Don, what are your thoughts on Closed for Renovation?
No, it's a cute song. It's not necessary for they did well without it. It's everything that unless you have a large budget, it's also tough to renovate a stage shop. So it allows you to do things like when we did it, we had the next. That's the first time you see the next largest puppet of the pod of Tui. So it allows you to, regardless of what you've done to the shop to renovate it, you now have this larger object covered in a sheet. And at the end of the song, you unveil the plant, and it's bigger than that hand puppet one. So that's, never mind what you did to the shop, whether it was repainting it or just hanging some more signs or adding some prettier flowers. When you take that sheet off the huge plant,
it gives that to the audience.
Oh,
Yes,
the
it's
audience
renovated.
loves
Yeah.
it.
Going after some fun now in the actual film, and in the stage play this happens too, after Chorus for Renovation in the stage play, is a song called Dentist, where you are introduced to Orin Scrivello.
DDS.
You'll be a dentist. You have a talent for causing things.
And played in this movie by the great Steve Martin.
Oh yeah.
Kills it. This, I would contend, is one of the greatest villain songs in cinematic history. It is. Again, and there's a song at the end of this movie that I will also contend is a great villain song, too. Dentist establishes who Orin is, who, as Mr. Mushnik says, what kind of professional drives a motorcycle and wears a black leather jacket. It's Orin. And Orin is sadistic. He likes to inflict pain. It's established that he's a masochist, and and he enjoys the suffering of people, and it's established through song in such a great, clever way. This entire sequence is hilarious in the dentist office. And this song really does a villain justice.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts, Don?
I love how he's like threatening everybody in the lobby, and right before he leaves, he turns around, a little girl sitting there with a doll, and he just rips the head off the doll and just tosses it on the ground.
Yep.
I mean, Steve Martin's a god among men when it comes to comedy. So, I mean, the song it's memorable, it's catchy, and it more than serves its purpose. So it's a brilliant song. Yeah.
It's there's not a lot to say about it because it's just so good. You have to watch it to believe it. And Steve Martin,
how he hops off the motorcycle and then
does
points
Elvis,
at it. He points at it, and that's when it stops. So the motorcycle is kind of like they always call motorcycle crotch rockets.
Yep.
Like it's the extension of his arm that he has this control over it, and it's such a and the movie makes it known that everyone thinks it's like a badass way, a bad boy kind of way to travel, and he sits her on the back and yells at her when she falls off it, and it's just such a he makes this such an iconic character.
He's a really unlikable character that you love to hate. It's
fantastic. And the only problem with that is when, and I'm sorry, I keep going back to the stage version.
Oh,
but
do it, yeah.
Everyone wants to do it like him, and when you're an audience member, it's like Disney. You expect certain voices and certain, and it's kind of a problem with Audrey too. It's so unique and so well done and so perfect that nothing needs to be changed. That when you go see the show, you're going to compare whoever the dentist is to Steve Martin. And Steve Martin's not the greatest singer in the role. He's okay, but he doesn't have to be, because his even he's on tune. No knock of his musical ability, but it wasn't even about his singing. It was just about him being bad, like a badass man, and just so into what he's into, the whole status stuff. Yeah, it's there's nothing else like it as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. So Don, what do you give Dentist?
I gave Dentist, I gave it 10. 10 out of 10 Tuies.
And I'm going 10 out of 10 Tuies as well.
Now spit!
Then we go back to the cutting room floor, where after the dentist song, as in the film, Orin meets Seymour for the first time, and Seymour witnesses the abuse that Orin gives, and witnesses the abuse Orin gives to Audrey. It really, really rubs him the wrong way.
Right.
But during that entire conversation, Orin suggests that Seymour should leave this shop and take the plant and do something bigger with it, which is overheard by Mushnik. In the play, Mushnik is a greedy bastard. He really, really is. All he cares about is money. He establishes early on that he doesn't like Seymour. He just likes the plant and he likes the success of the shop. In the movie, Mushnik is played by the great Vincent Gardenia. And Vinny Gardenia gives Mushnik a kind of more fatherly kind of appeal. Like, Mushnik in the film is a nice guy. He actually gives a crap about Audrey. He gives a crap about Seymour, even though he's kind of a
Right.
rough guy. He cares about Seymour throughout the entire film. He cares about him. And he doesn't want anything bad to happen to either of them. He's a very fatherly figure.
I would still say Greene takes over him, though.
Greene takes over him when we get to that song in a second, in a hot minute. But
Right.
in the stage play, he overhears what Oren says to Seymour, and he devises a plan to adopt Seymour so that he is legally binded by the plant.
How would you like to be my son?
So through a tango kind of song called Mushnik and Son, we
Yeah.
get that establishment, we get that adoption to what I consider to be the second best duet in the play, Mushnik and Son, which sadly is cut from the film, which is a tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy that we don't have Vincent Gardenia and Rick Moranis singing Mushnik and Son in the movie. What are your thoughts on the cut of Mushnik and Son, Don, and the song itself?
I mean, I like the song.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun number to do, and you're right. The tango, I think the tango aspect to it adds kind of a fun. I mean, I'm not much of a dancer. Neither of my Mushniks were, dancers who were actors. They were more actors and singers who were dancers. So it's not a terrible number for two guys who can't really dance too well either, which is cool. Like, I dig that. Yeah, and it also kind of goes into Mushnik's Jewish heritage. It has like a Fiddler on the Roof kind of part to it, and it's a fun number. If they could have fit it in, obviously I would have rather it been there, but I don't know if Vincent Gardenia can even sing.
That's what I was
or
thinking.
could.
I think the
He's-
reason
he's-
why
I
they
think
probably cut it because he couldn't sing.
Yeah, I'd be curious why they didn't do it, but it's not.
Yeah, that to me is the biggest cut that I wish they put in. Just because
I agree with that.
it establishes a lot and it's fun and it's funny
Yeah.
and they could have had a lot of fun with it. My guess is time, because this movie still clocks in at around 2 hours long. So, and they
Right.
already had 17 songs, 15 songs. I mean, 15 songs, 17 if you count the alternate versions.
Right.
But yeah, I could see why that it got the axe, and it sucks. But I mean, it is what it is. That song is amazing. But moving on, again, is another little cut song, which is actually Seymour's version of Somewhere That's Green, called Sudden Changes.
Sudden changes surround me. Lady Luck came and found me. Thanks a million for making the magic.
I loved singing it. As quick as it is, I thought it's a beautiful melody, and I think it's a, again, there's not much time to it, but I think you can. I always felt like that was a very emotional part for me. Just the I can only imagine how much it would mean to somebody, because Seymour does not know that Mushnik wants to adopt him just because of the plant. He actually thinks, like, his side of things is, I'm a son. I'm his son. Like, that's a big. I've never experienced it, but that's a big thing to especially as an adult, when you were semi-adult, when you've never had family. Now all of a sudden this guy says, the guy who took you in and raised you, so he has evidence that he cares about him already, or at least in Seymour's mind, Mushnik always cared about him. And now the same person who cared about him all these years, he wants to adopt him. That's big. I don't care how short the music is. I loved singing it.
And that's established again in Skid Row, where he says that he took him in, gave him shelter and bread, crust of bread, and a job, but he treated him like dirt and called him a slob.
Which
and
he is.
He is. But it also gives the motif of Somewhere That's Green, which is a strong motif again in the stage play when she dies at the end.
Right.
And on top of that, it just gives Seymour more motivation, just overall more motivation. I'm actually surprised it got cut from the film because it was so short. I mean, but again, that had to get cut if Mushnik and Son got cut.
Right, absolutely.
Because it's kind of the interlude into what I consider one of the best songs in the movie, bar none.
Does it have to be human?
Feed me!
Does it have to be mine?
Feed me!
Where am I supposed to get it?
Feed Me, Feed Me, Feed Me is probably the single most popular song in the show, I would assume. Would you agree with that? Feed Me?
I'd say it's tied.
With Grow For Me?
Well, No, I was gonna say Suddenly Seymour.
Yeah.
But also the song "Little Shop of Horrors" itself. Whenever you say it, like, little shop, everyone kind of goes into that.
But what are your thoughts on "Feed Me"?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's again my experience having been on stage with it. You're staring this puppet plant in the pod, and it's talking back to you, and it's such a wonderful experience. So now to watch the movie and the amazing effects with the pod, and Rick Moranis is such an identifiable character, just an identifiable actor. Like, he's not too intimidating. Mm-hmm. He's more on the squeamish side, like the smaller side. But he's so likable, as he always, at least in my life, anytime I've seen him, he's come off as I like him. I want to see what he's doing. So to hear these two go at it, talk about, and you're hearing Seymour, like, at first he's like, no, that's gross. I can't do it. Why would you? Who do I even know? And at the end, he's just like, let's do it. Like, and he's all into it, getting him food. And he says, I don't know anybody who deserves to get chopped up and fed to Hungry Plan. And
sure
Plan's
you
like,
do.
Sure you do. Yeah. And the music's phenomenal.
Oh, it's a rock song. It's a rock song. And of course, this has nothing to do with the soundtrack. But this is where I'm going to go into the puppetry of this damn movie.
Okay.
Is fantastic, especially in this scene. Just how Audrey looks, and Levi Stubbs, who voices Audrey, is fantastic. Levi Stubbs is a guy, Audrey is a girl. Sometimes I get mixed up sometimes, but it's established later on that it is a mother indeed. But Levi kills it. Rick Moranis kills it. This entire song establishes, as you said, the plot to kill Oren, because they see Oren outside smacking on Audrey.
Yep.
Everything's set in motion, and it's kill time.
So go get it.
Don, how do you rate this song?
Yeah, Feed Me, I gave 10 Tuies.
Okay, not surprised. I gave that phenomenal song too, 10 Tuies out of 10. Rocked it to the end of time. Now, again, these are two songs that got cut. We're going to discuss both of them because they're back to back. Because this is actually the end of Act 1 in the play and the beginning of Act 2 in the play. You have Now It's Just the Gas and Call Back in the Morning. So Now It's Just the Gas is basically the musical version of the death of Oren. So basically, you get the cameo by Bill Murray, which is fantastic. And then you get Seymour coming into the dentist office with a gun, which he never uses. Basically, Oren kills himself. He uses the gas on himself, and as Seymour sits in that dentist chair, and he kills himself.
The mask gets a valve on the mask gets snapped, so it ends.
It's
he
an
doesn't
accident.
kill himself on purpose.
Yeah, it's an accidental suicide, basically.
Right.
But in the play, this whole entire sequence happens through an actual song that establishes everything that happens, called "It's Just the Gas."
Giggle like a sappy, happy dope. It's just the gas. It's got me high. But don't let that fact deceive you. Any moment I could die.
And yeah, again, this is a song I can see why they probably cut it. Just because you kind of you go from a huge number like Feed Me, and then you're going to go into another huge number called of Suddenly Seymour. You don't want either of those to get overshadowed by another song that just doesn't need to be there. And of course, there's probably time reasons too, and orchestra reasons. Like, you already got close to 20 songs in the show. You probably have to cut down. So, Just the Gas, I could see why they cut. It would have been great to hear Steve Martin sing it, but it is what it is. It's a cut that I don't really care about. What are your thoughts on it?
I've never been a huge fan of the song.
Okay, you too. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's not the worst song I've ever heard, but I'm not a huge fan of the song.
It's kind of forgettable. And then Call Back in the Morning again is another forgettable song from the stage show.
Well, I like that one.
Okay. What are your thoughts on Call Back in the Morning? Because you like.
Well, it starts off with now. So now the shop is so big they have multiple phones. Mm-hmm. So when you stage it, both Seymour and Audrey have a minimum of 2 phones each, and you're getting call after call, and it's basically closing time for the day, and it's just a very chaotic kind of number. No, by no stretch of imagination is it my favorite song in the show, but no, I ended up having fun with it. It takes a lot of work though, because you have to coordinate all the phones, and then you have your two phones, and then you actually switch phones. Audrey gives you one of the lines that she has, so you give her one of the ones. Say, talk to this account while I talk to the Rose Bowl or whatever. So it's a fun number. Is it integral? No, it's just kind of a opening, an entr'acte kind of thing for to set up Act 2.
Call back in the morning.
After Oren dies, Seymour takes Oren's body back to the shop where the plant orders him to chop it up.
Right.
Yeah, and he doesn't want him to feed Oren whole. He wants it chopped up so he can chew it. You can also take it as the plant knew Mushnik was on his way back to the shop. That establishes the whole manipulation of Audrey. Soundtrack-wise, the next song is okay. If you ask me what my favorite duet of all time is, I would say it's "Paradise by the Dashboard Light Bar."
Of course.
Yeah, because I'm a big Meatloaf fan.
Right.
But if you were to tell me what the best duet of all time is in a musical, or in a stage play, or in a movie, bar none.
Suddenly Seymour is standing beside you. You don't need no makeup, don't have to pretend.
And I know Don loves this song just as much as I do. Don, tell us about Suddenly Seymour.
No, it's a love song. It's both of them. It's actually Seymour being supportive of Audrey when she's down because of Oren's disappearance, and he says, would it be that terrible if something happened to him? And she says no. She feels terrible about saying it, but she says no. It'd be wonderful. And think of all the money I'd save on Epsom salt and Ace bandages. So you even get like a little comedic jab in there, but no, it's just a beautiful song, and they by the end of it they're both professing their love for each other, and that's where the relationship begins.
Yep, exactly. And
it's wonderful.
It just builds.
The music is beautiful.
It just builds and builds and builds to a giant crescendo, and then they kiss. They finally kiss. Their feelings are established, and on top of that, this song is also, spoiler alert, the namesake of the actual show. This is called Suddenly Soundtracks, named after Suddenly Seymour. See what I did there, Don?
Nice.
See
yeah,
what
absolutely.
I did there? Exactly.
Good job.
I know. I think of things. Anyway, Suddenly Seymour is also the point, and the last point, and depending on which cut you see, is the final point in the movie where Seymour is happy, is 100% happy. Everything is good in his life. Everything is great. He has a smile on his face when he leaves that apartment. Then he comes back to the shop, and all hell breaks loose, essentially. So, Don, do I even have to ask, how do you rate Suddenly Seymour?
You don't need to ask.
Nope. Okay.
10 Tuies out of 10.
We both give Suddenly Seymour 11 Tuies out of 10.
11. Yeah.
Just one more because we can, and it's my show.
Fair enough.
Red dots all over the linoleum. Little red spots on the concrete outside. I'm talking blood, Krellborn. I'm talking under my own roof. An axe murderer. He's got your number now.
As I mentioned before, Mushnik witnessed Seymour chopping up Oren, and he ran away in fear. Right. This is where Mushnik confronts Seymour. And this, I will contend, it has to be in the discussion of best death scenes in a movie. Just because of how much atmosphere has been laid out before this happens. And the whole atmosphere of the entire scene is bone-chilling. This is obviously Suppertime. Now, Suppertime, Audrey 2, is coercing throughout this entire song as Mushnik confronts Seymour. You gotta feed him to me. You gotta kill him. He knows too much. When he's gone, the world is going to be yours. Everything is going to be good. Just kill him, and everything will be fine. All your worries and pain will leave you. And it's very eerie because during this entire scene, you have the backup dancers oohing and eyeing, and the reflections and the purple kind of glittering sequin stuff. It has an atmosphere that it's also the saddest point of the movie, I would say, because up until this point, Mushnik, all that Mushnik cared about was Audrey's well-being and Seymour. But Seymour kind of, in his eyes, somebody he's raised and trusted throughout his entire life, he saw chop somebody up. He had to make a choice, and he had to turn him in. And then greed set in. As he was getting to the door, he stops Seymour, and he tries to give him an ultimatum and blackmail. Essentially, he and Seymour kind of talk out the blackmail, but he's gradually, Seymour sees what Tui is doing. Tui opens her mouth. He backs Mushnik in, which confuses me because Mushnik has a revolver pointed at him. But it is what it is. I never understood why this happened, because we're gonna get into this in a second. Yeah. Tui clamps down on him, and nom nom nom, Mushnik is no more, and that's the end of Mushnik. In the actual stage play, it's even better, because Seymour says that the day's receipts are inside the plant, right? And he tricks him into going inside, right? Yeah. So it makes a little more sense how Mushnik gets into the mouth the way he does. But as a song itself, it's beautiful. It's well shot, well edited. That's the turning point of the movie. That's where everything.
I love how at the end, once he's devoured, you hear the urchins go like in a light kind of airy voice, supper time, like a very like Mariah Carey-ish kind of ending, or Christina Aguilera ending. It was just this pretty like harmonized, ominous feel to it. It was really well done.
And they didn't give a shit because he was treating them like crap the entire movie. He told them like, urchin, shoot, get away.
But in the staged version, there's time, because although he, in that scene in both the movie and the stage version, he did set him up to get eaten. Seymour did set Mushnik up to get eaten. There's time for, and I think it is good to have this in it. But in the stage version, Seymour has some time in the next scene where it shows that although he's done what he's done, he's sad about it.
Yes.
There's a moment, I think that's where he starts kind of losing it, Seymour, because he starts shouting at the plant, and I think that's when Audrey comes in and tells him she slaps him on the face quick, saying, You're hysterical, and that's when all these offers come for everything else. So he did get the future that he wanted, but there's a time before all those offers start in the stage play where he mourns that he did it. He regrets. He's not a killer. Even with Oren, he didn't kill him.
Yeah, it was all circumstance. And
he saw Oren as a completely bad person, but he still didn't kill him. And yet here's Mushnik, where although Mushnik was greedy towards the end in the movie, there was still, he's still the guy who came in. I mean, he was nowhere near the type of bad person that Oren was in Seymour's head. So now to actually set up the death of Mushnik, he needs time to mourn, and I think that's something missing from the movie.
Exactly.
It goes right into the
finale.
The prophecy of him getting everything he wants.
Yeah. The thing is, in the movie, Mushnik during this entire scene kind of doesn't want to do this. He doesn't. Right. He has the gun, but I feel like he's stepping back because he does not want.
No, he wants.
He doesn't
care if Seymour. He doesn't care if Seymour goes to jail or if he doesn't. He cares more. He wants the money. He wants the success. He wants luxury.
But he also has in his mind too that Seymour is a son to him. He raised Seymour, and there's a lot going on in both of their heads, and I don't think either of them really get a chance to really express themselves before Mushnik gets eaten. So the entire scene is just tragic because it's just circumstance. Seymour's thrown into this. He doesn't know what to do, and the only solution is to kill Mushnik and then deal with the consequences later.
Yeah.
That's essentially what this song is, and it does it beautifully. And this sucker gets 10 Audrey 2s out of 10 from me. What do you think, Don?
I'm right there with you. 10 2Es out of 10.
Suppertime kind of transitions itself into a song called The Meek Shall Inherit that Don was alluding to. Now, this is where things get tricky. Okay. The preview version of this song had it in its entirety. Preview audiences thought that it was too slow. It slowed down the pace of the movie. I don't see that. I do not see that. In the actual movie, Meek Shall Inherit again acts as kind of a inferior Some Fun Now, where it's another transition into the giant plant. It's a transition scene. It kind of tries to establish that Seymour is guilty, but it doesn't. In the actual film version that they filmed for the film that got cut, he has a vision of a giant portrait of Mushnik that's bleeding blood. He looks up at it, and he has this, the expression on his face just says it all. And it also establishes in this song that he feels that Audrey likes him because of the plant, not because of him. Which is also double tragic because she established earlier that she loved him for who he was. In Somewhere That's Green. So it has another bookend to Somewhere That's Green that's missing from the film. That's in the stage play. So, what do you feel, Don, about Meek Shall Inherit getting truncated in the film? And us losing a lot of this mourning stuff that you were talking about.
Yeah, the music they cut is, again, a part I loved singing. There's a part where Seymour gets very angry, and he says, where he decides the plant has to die, but then the music changes and he goes into, so he says, the vegetable must be destroyed, and then he kind of takes a pause, and that's when he gets into Audrey. He says, but then there's Audrey, lovely Audrey, and he talks about how without his plant she wouldn't love him anymore. So he knows the plant has to be destroyed, but then everything else good in his life, which is basically just Audrey and the success to some extent, that all goes away because the plant has brought all that, and the plant taketh away, Yeah,
exactly. It's a sad song that they truncated in the movie, and I still don't understand why. So we're going to give this 2 scores, Don.
Okay.
One is the movie truncated version, and one is the actual extended full version that you are familiar with. So as a whole, The Meek Shall Inherit from the film, I'm giving 7 Audrey 2s out of 10. It does its job, it does its transition, but it does nothing more. The soundtrack version, on the other hand, gets a whopping 10 Audrey 2s out of 10 because of how much it establishes and how dark and brooding it actually is. And I think the film needed that. It needed it, and it's kind of missing it. And again, since it's on the soundtrack album, we can rank it and we can rate it, and that does a lot of favors to it. What are your thoughts? What are your ratings of Meek?
Well, the song itself, I gave a 10 to the movie version. The extended, I like that part they cut so much. I'm gonna say both are 10, just because I understand that it still accomplishes what needs to accomplish. You see all of the offers he's getting and everything. The job is done. But I guess
film-wise, it works. It does work for the edit. It works for the edit, and it works film-wise for it. Yeah. It just would have been 10. It wouldn't have hurt to have the full version in there. After that, you get into Suppertime II.
Come on and give me a drink.
I don't know if I should.
Hey, little lady, be nice.
After Seymour leaves the shop to get some food, Audrey 2 calls Audrey to the shop, and it reveals herself to Audrey, and basically eats her, or attempts to eat her.
Right.
And then Seymour comes in and saves, quote unquote, saves her, depending on which cut you see, and takes her out to the lobby. So Suppertime II is just a reprise of Suppertime that is necessary.
Wait, I just want to interrupt you for a second, because seeing this recent director's cut in theater, another thing I noticed that I never really thought about beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So in structurally in the movie version of The Florist of Mushnik's Flower Shop, you see that there's an exit from Seymour's apartment in the basement.
Yeah.
You also see there's the front door of the flower shop, and you also see after the Audrey chomping scene, you see there's an exit in that same room as the main entrance, but it leads out to a back alley. So there are 3 choices to get out of this structure, and yet when Seymour, before Suppertime II, when Seymour and Audrey are going to get married, so he's stepping gently out of the lobby of the floor, out of the building, he decides to go through the complicated web of vines, the room that's covered in vines from this huge plant, instead of just going out the basement exit where he wouldn't. And it struck me. I was like, why is he leaving? What, he has at least 2 other exits in this building to get the hell out of there. Why is he leaving in the most complicated one? You know?
That never came to my mind.
Because think about it. If he leaves through the basement, he then meets up with Audrey. They get married. That got prevented because either Audrey 2 was waiting for him or he woke him up. Either way, if he exits through either of, particularly the basement exit that Mushnik confronted him in earlier, after the chopping, if he exits that way, who cares if the plant's alive? Like, I just don't. It struck me like, why in God's name is he leaving that way?
To be fair, we never see the basement after supper time, so they might have renovated the basement. Maybe it's not there anymore. That's possible, but it's also a plot hole. It's great. Yeah. It's great. That's great. New plot holes discovered every day of the week. But but that's it's still a great little scene. He's like, feed me tough titty. Some great lines in that one. But you get into Suppertime II. What are your thoughts on Suppertime II?
It's the plant at its most alluring. You know, it's the first time Audrey 1 has seen Audrey 2 as Seymour knows her. So yeah, it's gonna see in the stage version. It's slightly different. Audrey sings a little song called I think it's called Somonex.
I couldn't sleep. I took a Somonex, but voices in my head kept saying, "Go to Seymour, talk to Seymour."
She can't sleep. She's walking the streets of Skid Row, and then somehow the plant almost telepathically communicates with her. And so she's drawn to the shop, and that's what gets her there instead of, but to its credit, the movie had that great setup where the plant, you know, wrapped its vines around the counter and the columns, and it pulled itself over to the phone, and then it took a quarter or a nickel, whatever, from the cash register, and then as it's waiting on the phone, it's tapping its vines like little fingers. They did so much with so little. Like, there was just those little touches that add, and that's kind of the whole Frank Oz thing is like, how do you come up with stuff like that? It looks brilliant, you know.
You take something out, but you put something just as good in there.
And Suppertime II, I mean, yeah, it's a great tune, and it gets her into the shop. It's actually, to me, it's one of the more rational changes, because again, in the show, it's almost like the plant's talking to her in her mind to get her into the shop.
Well, yeah, and I would assume
but in this, he actually calls her. But then it also asks me, how does he know Audrey's number?
Well, yeah, but then
you
also have to ask yourself, how did Mushnik not hear the plant talking to Seymour during his death scene?
Right. Yeah. True. Yeah.
Because if I was Mushnik, I'd be like, who's singing that? What are they talking about? But yeah, true. It's the magic of music. But I feel like this scene worked. It works.
Oh, it did. Totally.
It worked for the film as much as it would for the movie. They could have easily had Ellen Greene walking down the streets of Skid Row, and she hears her. But this is more creative. It was a more creative kind of thing, and it separates the film from the musical a little bit better. So I'm giving Suppertime II 9 out of 10 Tuies, just because it's not as good as the more iconic Mushnik death scene.
Right.
But it's still fantastic.
I agree. I'm giving it 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we got that out of the way, and now we go into, let's go into the good ending first. How about we do that, Don? Okay? So after Suppertime II, Audrey is saved by Seymour. They go into the alley, and she does not succumb to her wounds, and they pronounce their love for each other and that he's going to go and he's going to kill the plant through a very, very small reprise of Suddenly Seymour. I don't even think much has changed. It's just the chorus, and then they get interrupted by
Jim. Song.
Yeah. So essentially, the reprise is the reprise, and it's just there. What do you think of the abrupt inclusion of that reprise in the actual soundtrack?
I think it's kind of the same for Suppertime too.
Yeah.
If you're going to include the Jim Belushi interruption, and I'm not a huge Belushi fan, but it's funny how he just kind of comes out of nowhere and has this wheeling and dealing for him. But if we're just talking strictly the song, I mean, yeah, it's Suddenly Seymour, but whatever. I don't know how.
I don't know how to rank it either.
It's actually done for camp purposes because they're singing so lovingly, and then it's interrupted. Like I think it was just done to allow Jim Belushi to make his way into the movie, you know?
Exactly. It's just an insufficient replacement to what they had to replace it with.
Right.
So because of that, I'm giving it 7 Tuies out of 10. What is your score?
I gave it an 8, just like something.
Yeah, it is what it is, and it exists for the purpose of the good ending. And then in the theatrical cut, after Meek and Greene Mother from Outer Space, which we will get to when we go into the dark ending. Okay. They go into the theatrical finale, which is just a musical instrumental montage of Suddenly Seymour and Somewhere That's Green that just goes into a reprise of Little Shop of Horrors.
Right.
Where it establishes that basically Audrey and Seymour live happily ever after. What are your thoughts on that happily ever after ending, Dom?
I mean, I'm of a frame of mind that when you like something, the first version will always be your favorite. That being said, I think I like the happy ending more just because that's what I grew up watching. Now that when I first saw this, I did not know it was a Broadway show. I didn't know the ending was different. So fast forward to college, you know, I think it was 1999 or 1998 when I did the show first time. That's when I found out what the real ending was. And I always wished, like, I didn't know about the movie, how they filmed all the ending and everything. So I kind of wished that, I wonder why they changed it and blah, blah, blah. And that's when I started learning about it. But don't get me wrong, I love the ending of the stage production. I mean, I would never want to do the happy ending over the original ending. But for the movie's sake, yeah, I mean, I prefer, even after watching the filmed original ending, I think I still prefer the happy ending just because that's what I'm used to. But I certainly appreciate that all of that exists, that it was filmed and finished, and you know, and it's still here, thankfully. But yeah, I think I prefer the happy ending.
Cool. You're actually in a minority, and that's totally fine.
I'm sure.
Yeah, because now the disaster effects driven ending that we're going to talk about is considered the canon ending now. But this ending, well, I grew up with this.
I prefer the happy ending when watching the movie. I prefer the original ending when watching or being in the show.
Okay, so that
I don't know that I can pick one overall, but it depends what medium I'm using. Yeah,
we'll discuss that when we get into soundtrack specific. But for this happy ending, it is what it is. The music in it is great. I like how it goes into a reprise of Little Shop, and that's fantastic. That's clever, and you get a sense of it's not 100% happy because Audrey too is still in the garden.
Right, that little baby one.
Yeah. So it is what it is. You can make do of what that is, but the happy ending happens, and I grew up with it. This is the ending I grew up with, but after seeing what the other ending is, there's no contest, and this just completely feels like it was shoehorned in because of test audiences,
right?
And it doesn't give me a good vibe. So again, I'm just giving the theatrical ending 7 Audrey 2s out of 10. Okay. I'm assuming you're much higher.
I give that an 8.
It's really awkward to really talk about instrumental music when you're talking about a musical. But you have to talk about the ending somehow. Anyway, now we're going into the trifecta. That is the alternate original finale. Okay. All right, so now in the original movie, they call it the director's cut, but it's actually just the original cut of the movie before
Right.
test audiences kind of screwed it over. The Somewhere That's Green, when Seymour takes Audrey out to the alley, she actually does succumb to her wounds in the original ending.
Right.
When she succumbs, she tells Seymour that she's going to be, and this is a great bookend to the original Somewhere That's Green earlier in the film, that she's going to be with the plant.
Right.
If she's with the plant, she's with Seymour, and she'll always be with Seymour. And thus she is going somewhere that's green, and it's very poignant, and it's very sad. Giving Somewhere That's Green, the song earlier in the film, more purpose.
But I want to make note
Go
that
for it.
one of the earlier lines in that scene is and it's campy when in the show when you do it, but and I think she did it in the movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is the character says, "When I die, which should be shortly." So in other words, she knows she's dying.
Mm-hmm.
If she were living, she wouldn't want to be fed to the plant because she could still be with Seymour. But the fact that she basically says, "I'm going to die anyway because of this, because of these wounds that I have. So feed me to the plant so I can always be with you and I can help you thrive."
I think she says that in the movie too.
Yeah, she did. I'm pretty sure she did. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very poignant. It's very poignant,
absolutely.
very short but very poignant. And again, nothing's better than good bookends in a musical. Nothing's better than motifs that work in a musical. And this does it to the 10th degree. Giving this sucker, actually, I like this better than the actual original context of Somewhere That's Green. I'm giving this 9 Audrey 2s out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gave it 8. I gave it 8 out of 10.
Okay, cool. So it does its job, but again, it's in an ending that you don't like as much as the original. So that just makes sense.
Right.
That just makes sense indeed. All right, and then we get into what I consider the greatest villain song ever written for a movie musical.
Better wait a minute. You better hold the phone. Better mind your manners. Better change your tone.
Mean Green Mother from Outer Space, which I wish was in the stage play. Mean Green Mother from Outer Space is amazing. Don, talk about Mean Green Mother.
Yeah, it's awesome. Although it has some verses towards the end that I'm not a fan of, like the whole where the drummers happen. But the edit for the movie, as is fabulous. The song itself is it's a great tune, and it's rocking, and it's you have all the plant and then all these little baby plants, and they're taking the shop down with them, and it's just a great song, very well written, and not even in the original show. They wrote it for the movie, and that's just even more credit to give to Menken and Ashman.
And they got an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Song because of it. And yeah, this song is great. Actually, I know for a fact that some productions actually put this in. I've seen on YouTube.
I can't blame it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like you're the one. It's like you're the one that I want from Greece.
Yeah. Because you need a villain song at the end. Because really, Audrey didn't have in the actual stage play. Audrey doesn't have his own song. Well, Suppertime. Correction.
Right.
As Suppertime, but it doesn't have his own rocking song. Like Feed Me is a duet, essentially. Yeah. But this is fantastic. It actually establishes what Audrey's true motive was through song. Establishes that yes, he is from outer she is from outer space. And although it has nothing to do with the soundtrack, the puppetry in this scene is bar none mind blowing. It's ridiculous how much effects went into this. When the shell of the plant explodes and you get all these tentacles that come out of Audrey, it's fantastic.
Yep.
And I half expected like the decaying remains of Mushnik and Oren to be there, but that would have been too much. That would have been funny though. This song is fantastic. Rockin' start to finish, and it does what it needs to do. It ends this movie on such a rocking high. Mean Green Mother from Outer Space is a villain song for the ages, essentially. So Mean Green Mother is fantastic. What do you give Mean Green Mother, Don?
I give it 10 Tuies out of 10.
I give Mean Green Mother 10 Tuies out of 10 as well.
So the stage production, Audrey's out with Sominex, and so the plant kind of lures her into the shop.
Yeah.
The plant chomps down at her. Seymour takes her out of the plant like he did in the movie, and she sings Somewhere That's Green, the reprise. Then Seymour, like the movie, feeds Audrey to the plant. But now, just like after Mushnik, once he feeds Audrey to the plant, he has morning scenes, where he's sad, and that's where Skip Snip comes in, says we could take cuttings. That's when he plans, oh, this is what you wanted all this time, take over the world. Now, in the movie, in the director's cut, let's call it,
he does that. He tries to commit suicide.
He does it on a rooftop. Yeah. He does it on a rooftop. Then he runs back down. Now, in the stage show at that same moment, first of all, there's no rooftop, obviously, in the stage show. But so Seymour confronts the plant, and then he says, "You killed the only thing I ever loved," meaning Audrey. Mm-hmm. And then he snaps into it and says, "I need to destroy this plant." So first thing he does, he grabs a gun and he tries to shoot the plant. Nothing works. Then he grabs rat poison and he tries to force it down the plant's, pod.
Doesn't work.
The plant just spits it right out. So then his final thing is, "I'll cut you from the inside. Open up. And the plant opens up and Seymour dives into the plant. Mm-hmm. And that's how Seymour dies. In the movie, there was no multiple trying to kill him. He might have shot him one point.
He shot him a couple of times. But
before
that's
Mean Green Mother, though.
That was during Mean Green Mother.
Because then, right, whatever. Because that's then the plant got the gun.
Yeah.
But in the movie, the director's cut, the plant actually wraps his tentacles around Seymour and eats him. Mm-hmm. Seymour does not feed himself to the plant. Seymour's trying to destroy the plant.
Yeah.
But in the stage show, Seymour, in order to destroy the plant, actually goes into the pod. So there's a slight difference, which I kind of, that's why I think another reason why I don't like the director's cut ending as much as the stage show ending is because it's not the emotion behind after Seymour loses Audrey. I don't think it reflects as much in the movie as it does in the stage show, in either ending of the movie.
It gives him a little bit more a comeuppance, though, in the actual movie, because all he wants to do is end. And I feel like in the stage show, it's him committing suicide. He does that to commit suicide.
But he didn't do it to commit suicide. He did it to kill the plant from the inside. It just was, he didn't know what it would be like once he gets in there. So the idea was, well, that's it. If I can't kill you from the outside, I'll kill you from the inside. So he dives in because that's the only way to get, the weaker tissue is inside the pod. But unfortunately, I guess, whatever happens inside the pod enabled him. It did not able him enough to do what he wanted to do. But he didn't do it thinking he was going to die. He thought he would chop him up from the inside out.
But and that's the stage play, and that's fantastic. In the movie, he gets grabbed by Audrey, and that's the end of Seymour's story. And then it transitions into "Don't Feed the Plants."
Subsequent to the events you have just witnessed, similar events in cities across America, events which bore striking resemblance to the ones you have just seen begin occurring.
"Don't Feed the Plants" is the original cut, the original director's cut ending of Little Shop of Horrors. Essentially, after Seymour and Audrey die, that guy Skip Snip that you were introduced to in the director's cut took those cuttings and began to sell Audrey 2s around the world, and that was the world's undoing, because during this entire song, Audrey 2s are conquering the world, destroying and killing everybody they see. In a giant effects-driven sequence that, film-wise, does go on a little too long. They could have shaved it down a little bit. Yeah. But it's fantastic to look at. It's a fantastic sequence. You have Audrey 2s eating subway stations, have Audrey 2s blowing up factories, have Audrey 2s being basically King Kong and Godzilla through the streets of Manhattan.
There's one or two on a bridge.
Yes, and they're just
the bridge is crumbling beneath them and swaying like a suspension bridge.
Exactly. This is just fantastic. Again, the effects in this movie are great. Don, what are your thoughts on "Don't Feed the Plants"?
It's an okay song. Mm-hmm. The visuals and the scene definitely improve it, but the song itself is nothing to shout about. I always felt it was kind of lax. The content of the song fits the ending of the show. I understand that's how they're telling it. But the visuals of the movie version are much better. Like, I love the whole the beginning where the urchins are walking out with that big American flag or whatever, like the scene from Patton. It's just it's awesome. And then just the puppetry and the effects with the plants everywhere around the city. It's wonderful. The song itself, I'm not a huge fan of it. It tells the story, so that's fine, but it's just I just never dug the song that much.
It does its job, I feel.
Yeah.
Through song, it does its job in a great way to kind of give everybody closure. A closure that I feel like we needed in the theatrical cut that we didn't necessarily get. But it is what it is. The song is... The effects in this song, even though it has nothing to do with the soundtrack, just kind of propel this song up for me a little bit more than probably you. Okay. But this song is fun. And
I do like the beginning part where it's the urchin singing.
Yeah. It has that drum beat.
The events you have just witnessed. That whole part I think is fun. But then the music when the faster part, they will offer you fortune and fame, that kind of stuff. It's like it's a little too cheesy, but you're right. It gets the job done.
You're gonna hate that on the actual CD. They cut the whole urchin bit. They just go into that part. It's stupid.
I have it. I forget. It's
the soundtrack CD of this movie is all sorts of inaccurate. Because they tried to bring out this soundtrack at the same time as the movie's release. But when you do that, because of mastering and overdubs and post-production, the version of the songs in the movie are not necessarily the version on the soundtrack CD. Okay. So you don't get a good... The prologue on the CD, Skid Row is re-recorded in its entirety. The version on the CD is nothing like it is in the movie.
Okay.
And this song... And Mean Green Mother, they all had rewrites during the actual production of the film. But if you listen to this on the CD, some things might be a little different. So don't have that throw you off. We are judging the soundtrack, but we're judging the soundtrack on the movie, not the actual CD soundtrack. Unless it's the case of Meek, Shall Inherit, which is on the CD in its entirety, and that's all you got. Then you judge it. But yeah, overall, this finale is fantastic. In my opinion, better than the theatrical one. And I am giving it 10 Audrey 2s out of 10. How do you give this, Don?
I gave it 8 2s out of 10. I still like it. I enjoy it, but I still prefer the theatrical release ending more.
So, guys, this is the last part of the show where we are going to rank all 17 tracks from worst to best. Now, Don, rank your list. And if you have anything in particular that you want to say or talk about during your ranking, why you ranked and placed anything you did, go for it. So let me hear your ranking, Don.
17, I have the theatrical release medley at 8 2s. So at 16th place, I have Somewhere That's Green reprise.
Okay.
15th place, I have the Suddenly Seymour reprise. 14, I have the Suppertime reprise. 13, Don't Feed the Plants. 12, The Meek Shall Inherit. 11, Suppertime. 10, Mean Green Mother from Outer Space. 9, Grow For Me. 8, Some Fun Now. 7, Dadu. 6, Dentist. 5, Somewhere That's Green. 4, Skid Row. 3, Prologue, Little Shop of Horrors. 2, Feed Me, and number 1, Suddenly Seymour.
All right, Don, my list consists of this. At 17, I have the theatrical finale. At 16, I have the Suddenly Seymour reprise. At 15, I have the Meek Shall Inherit film version. Some Fun Now clocks in at number 14. At 13, I have Suppertime II. At 12, I have Somewhere That's Green. At 11, I actually have the Somewhere That's Green reprise because I prefer that over Somewhere That's Green. At 10, I have Don't Feed the Plants. 9, Grow For Me. 8, Dadu. 7, Dentist. 6, Feed Me. At 5, I have Skid Row. 4, Little Shop of Horrors, the actual prologue. At 3, I have Suppertime. At 2, I have Mean Green Mother from Outer Space. And at 1, like you, I have Suddenly Seymour. If I were to rank the CD version of Meek Shall Inherit, it'd be in my top 4 easy. So our lists are kind of different, but it's still the same love of the entire movie. It's the same. Our lists are different, but we love this movie just as much as the other. Our overall average when you combine my score and Don's score, is 9.5 Audrey 2s out of 10. I am giving it an extra 0.5 Audrey 2 because I can, and I can piss Evan off.
Overall, Little Shop of Horrors is rocking.
Don, that does it for our show, Suddenly Soundtracks. Don, where can people find you online?
I'm Don Gormanly. You can probably find me on Facebook, also on Twitter at Donfucius, DonFucious, and Instagram, same thing, at Donfucius. I don't get on that much, but I'll see messages if you want to say hi.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChrisClark8788. Those numbers mean nothing. Or on YouTube at No Man's Land Entertainment. You can follow Take 3 Productions at Take 3 Trivia on Twitter and Instagram. So anyway, guys, next week we are going to be either doing La La Land or Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I will be making a poll in our Facebook group. Just go to www.facebook.com/group/Take3Productions, and you can join and vote on our poll there. It will be either The Hunchback of Notre Dame or La La Land. Whatever wins next episode will be reviewed and discussed in 2 weeks, since this show is bi-weekly. Every other Wednesday, alternating with the Movie Fandom Show as hosted by Matthew Kearns. Anyway, Don, thank you so much for coming. Guys, make it a great day and keep rocking.